Here I am at Marshall University, sitting with my good buddy John Marshall, at least the bust of John Marshall, and I was just thinking, where would there be a better place to talk about Marbury versus Madison than at Marshall University, because Marbury versus Madison is the court case that established the Supreme Court of the United States as the final arbiter of what can and cannot be done.
Before we go any further, let's understand a little bit of the historical significance here. First of all, the U.S. Constitution doesn't mention judicial review. In fact, the U.S. Constitution doesn't actually give the Supreme Court any power. It doesn't list any power for the Supreme Court. So it's John Marshall. We're so used to judicial review today that we don't understand that John Marshall in this decision actually establishes judicial review. It's his decision, or his court's decision, which he is the impetus of it, that allows the Supreme Court to review law and to establish constitutionality.
So now let's go on to the case. So I thought, to get into the spirit of the moment, I would don my judge's robe and put on a powdered wig and pretend I'm back in the early part of the 19th century. We've got to understand something. John Marshall is a Federalist. He was appointed as Chief Justice by John Marshall and by John Adams, and John Adams is the last of the Federalist presidents. And so he's a believer in the Federalist principles. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson get in a contentious election, and the result is that Thomas Jefferson, who had been John Adams' vice president, defeats John Adams, and it's a rather contentious fight. Well, Congress had passed a Judicial Act, and in that Judicial Act it allowed John Adams, who is a Federalist, to appoint a bunch of local judges, magistrates, justices of the peace, etc. Now here's the problem. Federal judges serve for life. So if John Adams is allowed to appoint these federal judges, then the Federalists, who are in disfavor at this point in time and aren't going to be allowed to continue in power, are going to have influence over governmental policy for decades to come. John Adams, for whatever reason, a skeptic might say he wanted to cause Jefferson some problems, and I happen to be a skeptic. He appointed a bunch of federal judges. They're called the midnight judges because they were appointed the last day of his term. And he doesn't deliver their commissions. So Jefferson becomes president, Madison's his Secretary of State, and Madison and Jefferson refuse to deliver what amounts to the contract to these judges that were appointed by John Adams. Marbury, who was appointed to be the Justice of the Peace of Washington, D.C., decides he still wants the job. So what he does is he sues James Madison, whose job it was to deliver his commission. Technically, that was part of his job. And he sues him and says, "You've got to give me my commission. You've got to let me be judge." And it goes all the way to the United States Supreme Court. So John Marshall's in a quandary here. Who does he tick off? Does he tick off his buddy, the former Federalist, John Adams, and the other Federalist, who he is a member of the party? Or does he tick off the sitting president, who's Thomas Jefferson? And he doesn't really want to rule in this. So he decides he can't rule on it. He cannot decide whether or not the commission, so he does a little workaround. What he says is that the Judicial Act that was passed, which would allow the appointment of these judges, were unconstitutional. We question about that, and people say, well, the Constitution doesn't say anything about the Supreme Court declaring things constitutional or unconstitutional. So when he's questioned about that, he basically says, well, what other purpose would there be for a Supreme Court if it wasn't to be the final arbiter of what is law, what is not law, and that the final document that all of law of the United States would rest on would be the Constitution. It stuck. there's still people who would say, now, he overextended himself. He took power that he shouldn't have had. And people can argue that all they want. But the truth of the matter is that in the end, judicial review becomes the law of the land, and John Marshall stands, and his legacy is this decision, Marbury versus Madison. Hopefully you have a better understanding of Marbury is not so important. In fact, the points of this case aren't that important. It's just the fact that Marbury versus Madison is important. Until next time, hope you are learning all there is to learn, and that you get that 5 on the AP exam.